welcome to the Friday episode of the Dollar and Bandits. I'm Orrin Phillips, and guess what? Tomorrow's my birthday, but I have a gift for you guys today. What's the gift? It's an interview with Guy Dorian Sr. Guy is 100% a self-made man. You'll find that out in this episode. He has done all the work, and he deserves all the credit and all the adulation he gets for what he's done. He has a son who's been an up-and-coming guy in the business. He has a brother who's also a big name in the business. Guy's worked with some of the biggest folks in the industry, and he's well known now for his work on ROM. He's kind of become the ROM artist for this generation. So he's a really awesome guy. You're going to love this interview. It's so interesting. Check it out, Guy Dorian Sr. We're talking to Guy Dorian Sr. Sir, thank you so much for taking the time to speak.
Hey, anytime, man. I appreciate you having me on. I'm glad that you do what you do because what you do really gets the word out to people that, hey, the people behind the scenes that create this, create that, create all the stuff that becomes movies, create the stuff that comes in at the toy stores and on your bookshelf and on your t-shirt. People don't know who we are many times. So I really appreciate what you do and thank you for doing that. And I hope to continue seeing that you're doing it.
Appreciate that. So the first question we ask everyone is, how did you first discover comics?
How did I discover comics? Oh my gosh. Okay, so when I was my brother, I have to mention my twin brother
Mm.
because it was always me and my twin brother Ian, who's also a phenomenal illustrator, sculptor, artist in his own right. Had incredible graphic novel that came out a few years ago with Bill Sienkiewicz, Joe Weems, and Mark Texiera. Yeah, he's a real badass. He's done stuff for all different types of companies and everything, and something for the DC Comics video game thing coming out or something. And he worked as a character designer for Warner Brothers on uh, uh, what's that famous The Watchmen,
Okay.
uh and all kinds of stuff like that. Phenomenal artist. Anyway, uh he and I loved art as kids. We had two loves. We discovered comics at the convenience store. There's no better place as a child. I'm 54. I'm turning 55 this year. In the it would have been 70, maybe 1977, 76, 78. When he and I first got the chance to actually see comic books, we were extremely poor kids. Okay, I mean, we're talking a tenement. Most people don't even know what a tenement is. A tenement is not an apartment building. A tenement is an apartment building that's in a terrible city, run down with roaches and mice and all that. It's poor, poor, poor. We didn't have a bed like a real bed till we were like 12. Uh, anyway, yeah. But anyway, enough of the sob story. Um, we got we were poor, but my aunt used to say, "Hey, here's a couple bucks." And then she started taking us out to go get comics. But we discovered comics at the convenience store on a spinner rack. That is the way there you cannot, you probably won't, that probably doesn't happen anymore, but your mind is blown at that type of interaction because you can spin a spinner rack around and there's all these comic books on it. And at the time, you could just pick up the comic book and look at the comic book, hold it in your hand, and go through them before the guy chases you out of the store and says, "Hey, stop messing with this stuff, kid." So, um, anyway, somebody just let my cat downstairs and she's gonna knock all my stuff down. I hope not because I have all my stuff here. But she can't go away without me. She's stuck
That's
to.
fun.
I have a black cat with a white spot on her chest. Her name is Boo.
Oh,
BOO exclamation point. And when she goes to the vet, they have to say it that way.
oh,
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know if you know, I don't know how old you are, but Spinner Rack was, discovering comics on a Spinner Rack, and there it was. There was things like Wolverine, I discovered comics before that, but I remember seeing things like the first Wolverine with Rubenstein, well, I'm sorry, with Miller and Rubenstein.
Mhm.
I say Rubenstein and Miller. Rubenstein really, did his thing on that issue, on that series, that four-part series. But before that, Byrne and Austin, and you had obviously Jack Kirby. But Jack Kirby was, at that time, Jack was just ending a lot of that stuff. So, a lot of that stuff, there was still stuff on the shelf, but not that much. A lot of it was, older comics and back bin stuff. So we weren't, we discovered it at the store, convenience store. So it was what was out that time. So one of the books was Rom that came out. It was a little later after we found it. But we discovered it there. And then there was this flea market that was about a half hour, 40 minutes away from our home. And uh my aunt used to take us there. Now we started doing martial arts when we were about 7 years old. So I'm 54 now. I've done it since I was seven, on and off, different martial arts, different disciplines, and even Western boxing, called Western because that's Eastern martial arts, Eastern boxing, Kung Fu. Anyway, so we would go to this flea market to get our weapons. Yes, at that age, back then, it was normal to have a pair of nunchucks with, I remember when swivel nunchucks first came out.
Mhm.
Okay, we had them before that. It was rope and all that. We used to even make our own.
Yeah.
But we were studying Kung Fu. It was like a movie. I'm not shitting you. It was like a movie because a kid, I was in second grade, and I met this kid and he didn't speak much English. Um, and his family came direct from China. And um, uh, he took me to his house, friends, I don't know what you call it. We were going to play at his house,
Right.
but his older brothers were there. And when I got there doing martial arts, oh, we were like, wow. He goes, you want to learn? My brother and I were like, yeah, because we would see the Saturday morning matinee, Apple matinee or whatever on Fox or whatever it was. Um, that Chiller Theater and all that stuff, but the martial arts stuff was on the Big Apple, whatever they called it. Anyway, we started learning martial arts there, but not to get off subject, sorry. But when we went there to go get these comics at that auction, I mean, to get the kung fu stuff and the weapons, there was a comic shop there, and the guy sold all kinds of stuff, all kinds of comics, and I saw. Oh, we got a lot of our comics there, and then there was a mall we started going to get comics. But the first time we saw comics, I really can't remember what it was, but I can remember that the artists were Kirby, obviously. And we were like, he draws kind of weird back then, like, what is that? But I like it, I don't, and Walter Simonson, um, and all that stuff, Swamp Thing. We were big into Marvel, but John Byrne,
Mhm.
like Walter Simonson was one of my favorite artists, but John Byrne I related to, if I could say that. And in some ways, I didn't want to relate my art to Walter because I didn't want to demystify any of it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Um, anyway, there you go. So that's what it was.
So how do you make the decision that this is maybe a career path that you want to pursue?
Okay. Now this one, a lot of people on the internet have found this out because I did a post on Walter Simonson's thing and
Mhm.
on his page, and um, Walter and I are pals. I'm working with him right now. I worked with Wheezy for years now, on different projects. Um, I love them. Uh, we're going to be together at the next convention, coming under my Good Alien banner.
Very cool.
Uh, I'll explain that to you later, but I was at the comic shop, and my brother and I used to study the Art of the Masters since we were children. Like we would go to the library and photocopy all the Renaissance masters' works out of books. We were 8, 9. No one told us to. We had seen some of it when we were at the library one day with my mom, and we were like, what is that? So we looked at that stuff all the time and drew from that. And we started to draw from comic books. But then the thing that changed everything, it made me go from, I like to draw comics, I like to draw some of that stuff from comic books, to I'm going to be a comic book artist someday. That was Walter Simonson's Alien adaptation. Archie Goodwin, Wheezy did some color on it, by the way.
Mhm.
I never saw the movie. Tried to, it was all squiggly. Um, it had no, you know what? I don't think that I tried to even see the film until after, because I think the adaptation came out right before the movie. I can't remember. I saw the Alien toy on a commercial, which I still have today. I
Oh,
have the original Kenner. What was it Parker Brothers or was it Kenner? Maybe it was Kenner. Kenner. Um, Alien figure.
mhm.
It blew my mind. It was not. It was not like your Migos that looked like cool toys, but were like a cartoony thing of a toy. They weren't like the way they look today. But you can take the Alien that came out back then, that action figure
Mhm.
that was on the shelves, and today you could put it out and it would not look any worse. I mean, any better. It wouldn't look any better. You couldn't, even if you can get a little more detailed with and everything, it's there. It was there already. And that impressed the hell out of me. Well, when I was at this auction, I saw Walter's adaptation. Couldn't buy it. Didn't have any money to buy it. I had already gotten some things, and I just couldn't get that as well. It made such an impression on me when I saw that book that was the moment I said, I'm gonna be a comic book artist. I don't think about would I want to. I was thinking I'm gonna be a comic book artist, and it blew my mind. Who knew? Many years later, when my wife and I went over to go visit Walt and Wheezy, uh, Walter took me into the studio, and he opened up a drawer, flat file, and in absolute pristine condition in plastic, in individual plastics, are the original Alien adaptation book, the originals.
Yeah.
I almost flipped my effing lid, because here I am with a guy I've known for years. I've been working with his wife.
Mhm.
She's a good pal of mine. I'm at their house, and I have to try to not go fan fanatic. I don't know if people understand, if you've ever been a fanatic about something, when you're friends with that person, you go into this weird awkwardness. It's like, hey, what's up, Walt? How you doing? Call on the phone, talk for an hour, blah, blah, blah. What's going on? Let's work together. But then you get transported all the way back to childhood.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there, and he and I were sitting on the floor. We weren't standing. We're sitting on the floor together. And I'm holding this thing, trying not to fucking tear. Okay. Because it was like full circle. And it reminded me that the moment that I said I'm going to be a comic book artist because of Walter Simonson, it's going to make me all tear up now.
Yeah.
And here I am, many, many, many years later, a professional for a long time. And it made me go, oh, I'm a professional. Because sometimes I still go, am I a professional? Holy shit, really? And then I look around and go, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm working with that one now, and this one, this one, that one now. And then I turn around and I go, wait a minute. Hey, wait. Oh shit, yeah, my stuff was out for And then somebody will send me a message. Your WWF toy line was iconic. Blah blah blah. My childhood was made so. And then I go, oh shit, that's right. I did do that, didn't I? Fuck, I was only 24 years old. What
Right.
did I know? I didn't know oh yeah, my stuff was in Chasing Amy the movie. I didn't know that, so it brought me all the way like forward and then back and forward, and I'm sitting there with my head exploding right next to Walter Simonson, who handed me the original page while I'm looking at it, going, oh my God. Sorry that took so long to
No,
say,
no, that's an
but I wanted
awesome
to give a
story.
little backstory, a little side story, and a little how it all comes full circle.
Right.
And so you could get the idea of what the emotions were
Mhm.
that came from me being a child to realizing I'm a professional while I'm sitting there with Walter Simonson, and how that work, that one work that he did of the thousands that he's done, was the thing that made me go, I'm going to be a comic book artist. And that moment is you can't, a moment like that is something that remains as part of your history forever. Because, obviously, I'm a huge Sal Buscema fan. Herb Trimpe was the god to me. These were guys I worked with. I loved Herb. We were good pals. I was inking his last piece he ever did that was fully finished, a cover, when he died, and I found out. I got called by Bob Camp because I was looking for him, couldn't get a hold of him.
Yeah.
Uh, at the same time, I was working with Walter Simonson, talking to Neil Adams about doing the cover, and Michael Golden, and it was like, it just makes everything be culminated together, and I go, I might have said, hey, I want to be a comic book artist if I saw somebody else's work, but to that point of everyone I saw, I loved comics. But when I saw that Alien adaptation, I had not seen the film, and I saw Walter's book. I just couldn't. It just blew my. I was just like, and today, I can't touch Walter's skill, and most people can't. Even if they think they can, that means that they don't understand what's on his pages. That's the. This is something I try to explain to people when they say, "Oh, this one," because they render more, or
Mhm.
they put more detail this way, or they use certain type of detail and certain types of shadows and lighting that Walter does a little more cartoony or such, comic booky versus an illustrator who might, uh, that's a bunch of horse poo,
Mhm.
because you have to understand what he's doing. And when you understand how he uses the right, everything he puts down is correct. Everything he puts down is for a reason. Everything he puts down when he uses blacks, and when he composes a page, there's something graphic going on there in weight distribution of blacks and whites, and masses of forms, and negative space and positive space and action and movement, and use of backwards S and Z patterns, and all these things, and that come into play, that a lot of that a lot of people, I was going to say layman's, I don't know if that's the right term, a lot of people who want to be artists do some art, some who are professionals, but many that are not, don't understand if they look at it. And then you see Ivan Reyes and you go, "Whoa, Ivan Reyes. Oh my God, look at the illustration in that." And Ivan is one of my favorite illustrators. He's godly. Uh, Mike Diodato, same thing. Hi, Mike. Uh, yeah, I'll send it to him. Uh, so, you go and you look at it, but then when you look at Walter, what Walter is he's like, he embodies comic books for what, no matter, it's this energy that's in there. That is what came from Ditko, what came from Kirby, what came from all those guys. And that traditional craftsmanship is, I'm sorry, I'm going on a Walter Simonson
Oh, no,
rant,
no, no, it's fine.
but he knows how I feel about him. And even when I talked to him today on the phone, I go from, that to somebody asked me about Walt, and you know, uh, I was at Baltimore Con at the end of last year, and who was I with? It was a few people. Ron Garney and I were looking at Walter's stuff, his sketches, and we're just like, oh man, oh my God, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that. We were talking to Al Milgram, and then Walter went to his table. I was gonna go see him later, and then Al walked away, and and Ron and I are, we're both accomplished illustrators, and we've been through it, and Ron is, insanely accomplished. And we're just looking at his Walter stuff and go, oh, look at that. And we'll get the way the black is and the way the shape is. It's like, oh, it's so awesome. Anyway, that's why I try to, that's why people have asked me, why do you draw? Like, because I can draw. If I want to draw like Bernie Wrightson, I can draw like Bernie Wrightson. I'm not saying I'm as good as Bernie Wrightson. Please stop that,
Right.
people, because nobody is. But if I wanted to, if I wanted to use a Kelly Jones style, or I wanted to use that chiaroscuro and use that lighting and use those forms, I already know how to draw anything. But for me, I'm the Sal Buscema, I'm the Herb Trimpe lineage, Sal Buscema lineage, the Walter lineage. Like when you could tell when Sal took over for Walter and Walter was writing on the Thor that Sal was drawing, it was a really smooth transition because of that. And I'm sort of a burn Sal Buscema with some Michael Golden all mixed. And I'm comfortable there. It brings me joy to be there. And there's something to be said about being true to yourself and drawing in a fashion that you decide. My brother leans more towards the Neil Adams and Jim Aparo and Bill Sienkiewicz. uh, I've worked with Bill before, and we're just absolute contrasting styles. But we were like, hey, let's work together, and so we did something on a John Carpenter book, Sandy Carpenter's company,
Mhm.
and John's presented by John Carpenter, Tales for Halloween, and we were like just chilling, having fun,
Right.
you know. But I don't take that approach. But I like where I am and the kind of thing I am. And the thing that I do is I'm a the one thing I like to create characters.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry. I don't want to go on a tangent.
I
So
don't know. It's absolutely fascinating stuff to hear your perspective and stuff like that. We were speaking a little bit before we went on, and you were saying that you were 19,
yeah,
19 years old when
yeah.
you started in the business. You're in Marvel
Mhm.
working on X Force and X Factor. And these are big books. Uh,
They were the biggest books there were. I was
right.
only an assistant, but only an assistant on books that are selling in the millions is not only an assistant to some in some views. If you were to try to say that today, an assistant was working on a property that is one of the biggest properties ever, and ever at Marvel, with characters like Deadpool and Domino and all Cable and all that jazz.
Yep.
And then, you say, you had a chance to work on that. I did. Yeah, I did backgrounds, and I did knives, and I did Deadpool's knives and weapons, and I did Domino, but I also drew faces. And then at times I drew full panels and full people, and I got no credit
Like,
for it whatsoever. This wasn't Rob. Don't blame Rob. It wasn't. It was as Rob was leaving. There was a guy, Mark Casella, and they asked him, "Can you do your style like Rob?" And Mark got a lot of crap for that. But truth be told, Rob Liefeld has never not sold well.
mhm.
And at the time, Rob was selling incredibly well. It was the burst, and he was selling in just incredibly, incredibly well. So whenever they always, you'll always hear, draw like yourself, draw like yourself. We want to find and discover you. Bullshit. If you could come into the industry, even even the great Bill Sienkiewicz, followed in the path of Neil
Mhm.
on Moon Knight and all that jazz. And he had that Neil thing, just like a Paro and everything, until Bill said one day, hey, I want to do me. I got these skills, man, that I want to bring to comics. And then when he did that, it just blew everything open. And I'm not saying he surpassed everyone. I'm saying he fucking surpassed everyone, okay? Because he did. And I don't want to hear any bullshit that he didn't, because you can't, Bill transcends everyone. Because when he's drawing his stuff, he's probably doing this most of the time. Drinking coffee, splattering some stuff, making some toast in one of his 1,000 toasters, because he collects toasters.
Mhm.
And he's yawning and go, oh, I got 30 pages to do. When does that due? Tomorrow? All right. And it still looks better than everybody else. So no offense, Bill's the Bill is, he transcends all of that.
Yeah.
I love you, Bill. I'm gonna send it to him too. I have to call him anyway. We worked together a few years ago now, and we got to catch up with something like in the future.
So,
Uh,
as a 19-year-old, how are you handling the pressure of being on these books and
there
all?
wasn't pressure. I'll tell you why. So I had no fucking clue there was pressure.
But
I was 19 years old. I was a year and a half out of high school. My brother had done a portrait for someone. The guy said, "Hey, I know a guy at Marvel. I know you're interested in Marvel. Here's his number." My brother went up to meet the guy, Mark, and he was hanging out with Dan Panosian and a few other guys. I think he was friends with Bill Ray or somebody, and I think he knew Ron Garney as well, and other people. Anyway, he had an efficiency apartment in Manhattan, drug dealers knocking on the door, drug addicts, I should say. It was a tenement. It was just a one-bedroom efficiency squished thing, that I had to traverse my way into the city in the middle of Houston Street and East Houston or whatever it was, Allen and East Houston or something. And the real, you got to be. I didn't realize that when I was that young, that I was at Marvel. There was still a bullpen. I was walking around with John Romita Sr. at his office. John Buscema walking around every so often, all these artists, all these big editors, Shooter and Milgram was there, all these other guys, and anyone you could think of that's like, legendary at this point, they were all there. And I'm walking in Marvel and not realizing that this won't be here in 15, 17 years. And in 20 years there won't be anything that looks like that, because it won't resemble the same thing. When I was there, it was like a newspaper company. Anyway, so I'm 19 years old and I'm working on this, and I'm like, who is this character? Oh, his name is Deadpool. That's right, I saw him a few months ago in an issue. Right, as New Mutants. And I was like, oh right. And uh um and then Dan Panosian's like sitting like over there inking joke. I remember this, it wasn't at the same time. I was there before that, but I remember things like Dan getting a Ghost Rider cover from Quesada,
Mhm.
and he's inking Quesada. And I'm just sitting there. I would go into the Marvel offices, and they would let me make photocopies of Epting's work, and I would see Jim Lee's originals that are just because Jim and them were just getting ready to leave or just leaving, and they had their final books in or something like that. Um, I can't remember exactly. It's been so long, but I would see originals. These originals are now worth millions if you put them all. And I was just like a kid going, "Oh wow, yeah, okay." So I got some photocopies, and I wasn't actually a goofy guy though. I was very different. I wasn't your. There's different kinds of comic book guys.
Mhm.
I was a martial artist, and I was into boxing, and I'm not saying I was a tough guy either, but I was not. I was never the. Uh, I don't want. I don't want to use. I was a different type of comic book artist,
Mhm.
comic book creator. I was an artist. I was interested in the art. I was interested in the craftsmanship of illustrating in black and white. I was interested in the chiaroscuro and learning anatomy. I was interested in perspective and graphic design. I was interested in learning three-dimensional illustration. And I actually was already, my brother and I were taken out of our classes from the second grade up to go to the gifted programs. And then where I lived, they had made an entire gifted school. So you didn't go to regular classes with anyone. Every class you had was a higher level learning and gifted program class. It wasn't like they take you out and you go for 2 hours. It was all day, all through from morning till the time you leave school. And we had our art teacher had his doctorate's degree, and he was the head of this and that, and he had written books, and he was an architect and all that stuff, and it wasn't just like regular courses. So we had been given this opportunity in a very multicultural school. The school was made to be multicultural, not now, back then, 40 something years ago. They had people, and they specifically got kids who were Black, who were white, who were Asian, who were Indian, and put us all together and said, let's try this program out. Let's see how this works. And let's get all these people together who are in the gifted program and give them only gifted works and higher level learning for math, this, that, academics, even physical education. So, but when you walk into Marvel Comics, at that time, everything that I knew and everything I studied meant dog shit. My brother, who was always a proponent for helping me get into the comic industry, he knew I should be one. He brought me to meet Dave Cockrum. And for years, I drew the xenomorph alien just out of memory. And then from the toy and stuff, just to be like Walter Simonson. And of course, I could never match that. Most people can't even today. So then I brought this picture, this beautiful illustration, grayscale. I was using all the grayscale I learned and tones and everything, all that jazz. And I had this xenomorph up on the wall. Everybody online at this comic shop waiting to meet Dave Cockrum was like, "Oh my gosh, I thought I drew well. You're amazing. Holy crap." And I bring it over. This is right before a year before I got into as an assistant X-Force. And I bring it up to him. I finally get up there. I'm all like proud and scared at the same time. And he looks at me and goes, "You draw really well." Yeah, so what? And I'm like, "What?" He said, "So what?" He goes, "There's a million people who can draw well." Okay, maybe not a million, but you draw really well. But we can't do anything with that. If you want to be a comic book artist, you can't do anything with that. Can't tell a story, man.
Wow.
And I'm saying it more like I would say it. I only got to meet him like once or twice. I think I met him twice, but the one time. And he wasn't being mean. So don't take it that way. Sometimes I tell that story, the truth, in the way that it came out, but some people take that in a bad way. He was trying to help me. He was saying, "Hey, kid, fucking wake up, dude. You look at comics all day, yet you're not drawing them." And this is the first thing I tell people all the time when they say, "I could draw that drawing I saw in a comic." And I'm like, oh, Dave Cockrum, what would Dave say? Dave would say, "So what?" Because usually that means you can copy a picture that someone drew. And then it goes to, you might be able to draw something similar to it, but it takes you a month or a week, not one panel of 8 panels and do 8 panels in a day of whatever's asked of you, not something you wish to do or hope to do or with, it. And Dave Cockrum was that second thing. So the first thing was Walter. I saw Walter, I got to be a comic book artist. Then it was Dave Cockrum waking me up and smacking me in the eye. "Listen, kid," grabbing me by the fucking collar, basically, and saying, do storytelling or this doesn't mean anything. Then my brother and I went and started drawing comic pages over and over again. And I did 150 pages of samples while I was an assistant.
Wow.
Some of them I didn't even bring up.
Mhm.
They weren't good enough. And my Mark would say, you can't even show that. It's not good enough. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I worked so hard on these.
Yeah.
But eventually I did get work. And before I became a professional, though,
Mhm.
I was already an assistant. So, and I was working on these huge titles. And as soon after I started, I was drawing full panels and shit. But um, I also sold a 4-page I got a 4-page story for $50 a page of Daredevil that was never going to be published, but I was given it. So I guess that really means I don't like to say I was a professional because it was really a gift by the editor. Hey, take this home and work on it. I think it was his way of helping me work on something and giving me confidence. And then I sold uh, um, a Daredevil pinup. I sold a Nova pinup, and then I sold a double-page splash of the Fantastic Four that Al Milgrom inked.
Wow.
So the first people that inked my stuff was Dan Panosian and Al Milgrom. How lucky! So, but I paid my effing dues, man. I mean, I had no money.
Mhm.
I had I had a baby at home. I had a wife. I would spend the only money I had just to go up there. I would have nothing to eat, barely at all.
Mhm.
It would take me hours to get to the city. I would have to wait for a train for the next morning when I left at night because there was no other train, so I'd have to just wait for hours. And I mean, when people tell me, somebody recently said to me, "Oh, I got the greatest idea in the world. Everyone's gonna love it and everything." I said, "How many people have you shopped it around to?" "Oh, nobody, but you could do it." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Listen, I can, but you need to promote. You need to go out and try. It doesn't work that way. People aren't just knocking on your door. And if you think that all the other professionals who are known professionals who've been working in the industry with each other back and forth over 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40 years don't have these ideas that are good ideas, you're probably mistaken because we know what we're doing. But it doesn't mean that the idea is not good. But what I tell people is, listen, it, if you haven't even tried, no one's going to look at you, man. Why would they? It's not that you don't have a great idea, but try, man, try. You've got to do it on your own, no matter what. And this goes for being a professional or not being a professional. Many professionals out there today don't work at Marvel, and they've worked at Marvel and they've worked at DC. And you go, but they're doing a crowdfunding. Why wouldn't they? Now, finally, creators have some of their own power to create things they want to create and be and own them. So they're going to go and I'm going to give that up so I can, go work at Marvel. And it's nothing wrong with that. I still have, I told Herb Trimpe and I work with Sal that I would do Hulk someday. Hopefully I'll put forth the effort to go and do Hulk someday.
Mhm.
One of the other things I wanted to do was Rom. Chris Ryall gave me my shot on Rom. Sal Buscema was my inker on Rom and my partner. He's been my partner for 12 years. And if you told me when I was a kid that my inker of many, I think the only person who worked with Sal steady longer was Ron Friends, and it's probably because he's older. I haven't had that opportunity. I'm not old enough yet. But either way, he's a phenomenal artist.
Mhm.
But to have Sal as my anchor for all this time, and then I got to work on Rom, And if you told me back then, oh, someday you're going to be drawing Rom and everyone's going to tell you that you're one of the best Rom artists of all time. And oh my gosh, your work with Sal was amazing. And you work with Sal. And it's like, but you know what? The story I told you about how you have to try, how you have to work. I worked so hard and I had nothing. And I had a slice of pizza to eat for the weekend while I was uh, uh, working for no money on books I wasn't even getting credit for, just so that I could be this person, just so that I could get to that place. And be, well, how'd you get there? Man, it was an insanely difficult road. But now even though I'm a professional, I want to continue to create. So I'm doing that now. And a lot of the properties that I do now either were coming out with a company called PKMM, or they were coming out with um, John and Sandy Carpenter, uh, 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 um, which Wheezy and I created an entirely new series and graphic novel and characters and such. And now I'm working with a buddy of mine, Thomas Chillemi, who was an indie comic book guy and had done some indie comics in the past and had his own comic thing.
Mhm.
And but he's also a store owner, and he has a chain of stores. And we got together, and it was like a great merge.
Okay.
And I had all these things I wanted to do, and we created something new from. I had a property that I wanted to, that I started to develop, and then he and I got together, and then we started moving it around and molding it more into something that would work for the both of us and everything. And it's really cool stuff, and that has Louise Simonson on it, and it has Walter, and it has Sal, and it's Joe Staten and Chris Ryall, and my son, who's been a professional writer for like 11 years. Um, and you name it, there's going to be a bunch of other people involved. And but to be working with those people, do you think I would have the chance to work with them right now on a project at Marvel? No, it's going to be somebody, and there's no, I think there's great artists out there, but it's going to be somebody that I don't know, or somebody that I can't talk to. Um, or somebody I've never, I don't gel with our styles, somebody who doesn't understand the traditional craftsmanship type style of working in comics. And I don't want to give that up. And no matter where, I can go to all different places. I work with Scott Hanna a lot, by the way, too.
Mhm.
I love him. Uh, I wouldn't be able to consistently work with those people if I move from project to project and the editors at those companies are telling me who I work with. So yeah,
I want to talk a little bit, some of the books you've worked on, but for you personally, are there moments or books or projects you can look back on as kind of mile markers where your art evolved? You can look at this book and say, like, okay, this is when I started doing this. And then a few years later, okay, I started to discover this.
that's a good question. So by the time I started as a professional,
Mhm.
I already knew how to tell a story, right? But there's telling a story is apples and oranges. Open on establishing shot, or just open on, Stark Industries. Okay. Is that a straight on shot? Is that a 3-point perspective down shot?
Mhm.
Is that a 3-point perspective up shot? Is that a 2-point perspective? How is it cropped? None of it matters. Does it fit into the flow of the page? So back then, I had discovered how to do comics after 150 pages of samples and 2.5 years of being an assistant on those major titles.
Mhm.
Seeing all Marvel people around me and them going, someday I'll give you a job, as a full-time artist. I mean, I used to just be sitting there doing samples in Marvel while editors are walking around, hey guy, what's going on? And artists coming in with their works and stuff. That's something that no one can ever do ever again, probably. It'll never happen. I was there for that last time of absolute freaking greatness of stuff. I'm not saying there aren't great people, just that time, that that era of, it's like a newspaper company. It was so different. It wasn't corporate in any way, none of that stuff. Anyway, um, the over the course of the years, my art has changed this way or that. And what happens is you'll start to do something a little bit more. Like, oh, while I'm working on this, I'm gonna use more heavy blacks. I'm gonna use less blacks, but I'm gonna compose panels differently. And this time I'm gonna do this, and this time I'm gonna do that. So I would say that my illustration has gotten more refined. I'm not at my peak yet either. I think I'm nearing my peak that I'll probably sit at for 10 years. And yeah, I'm 54 now. But I'm not saying I'm Jack Kirby, but I'm trying to explain something here. Jack Kirby was like 44, 46 when he created the Fantastic Four or something like that. And he had been in the industry for a long time. And he is the god. Again, I'm not comparing, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to explain that you can be in the industry for 30 years and still find your stride later. I mean, Jack Kirby's uh use of art in the way that the use of the figure and doing what he did with the figure and with the panels really evolved through that time into a third era of his work or second era of his work. Um, so there were who was it who said there were times of Jack Kirby? I think it was darn, how am I forgetting his name right now? He worked on Batman, Tim Sale. Tim
But
Sale in an interview said, there were the ages of Kirby.
mhm.
And so did Royer, I think. Um, I love Mike. He's a good guy. We worked together once. Um, uh, um, there were the ages of Kirby and the eras. It's sort of like that with every artist. Like you look at Mike Golden. Michael started out and it was a bit more rough when you first look at his early works. And then it became, and he got through the Micronauts and this style emerged that was very, very ingestible. I mean, really ingestible, where his anatomy and his line work was like absolutely insanely cool. And it was so comic, it was unbelievable. And he's still that way. But he started incorporating Jack Kirby in the 90s, more so in the 90s. He started incorporating more Jack Kirby. So today you'll see a lot of his technique, it happens to fall to Jack Kirby. And what it is his way of thinking. He uses great illustration, understandable line forms, and everything has to do with light and shadow with him. It's all about lighting with Michael. For me, I have developed myself into this, like I said, sort of if I could compare myself to people, it would be in that realm, the Sal Buscema realm. Herb, Sal, very close with Sal and John Byrne, with a little Michael Golden thrown in there. And um, and I would say that all of those years have culminated to what I do today. So back then I didn't have that. Today I do,
Mhm.
but I've discovered myself through the years and I've evolved that way because I've discovered myself. And over the last even like 5 years, I've upped my game. And you're gonna see and you're seeing and you're gonna see some of the best stuff I've probably ever done or ever will do over the next 10 years, I would say. Because you have this, it's not like I won't be able to draw anymore, but you get this like 10, 15 years before you start changing. And then things change again. And you go, well, why'd you change? Like There's an artist I know, phenomenal. He used a lot of photo references. He doesn't use them, and he switched to not using photo references, and it just looks very different. So, but there you go. Sorry.
So, what you said is fascinating, and I'm curious, what is it you are going to see in your art at that moment that's going to tell you I've hit my peak? Like, is it going to be
Well,
just things?
you know what? I might have said peak. I don't mean peak. What I'd say is to the masses, I probably draw better now than I ever have before.
Okay.
And I am on a roll especially when I draw characters like Rom. Like you gotta, you could work in uh, so a lot of artists have many different books they worked on. Let's look at Sal. Sal's worked on everything. When you think of Sal, you think of Hulk and Rom. Doesn't mean that he didn't draw Captain America and Falcon. It doesn't mean that he didn't draw the Defenders. It doesn't mean that he hadn't drawn every other effing book in the world. Doesn't mean that he didn't do Batman or even Spider Girl. Spider Girl, was it? Um, but you think of Hulk and you think of Rom, most prolific Rom artist of all. If he wasn't doing that book, we wouldn't have had all those years of Rom. You can't convince me otherwise. Um, so that's his thing. For me, it just turns out, because I'm in that realm, because I'm in that lineage, and I'm literally working with Sal for 12 years. Herb Trimpe was a good pal of mine and all that jazz. And I came in on things like X-Force and, assisting on that stuff and everything. It's a natural progression that Rom would be someone that people now attach me to because I have worked on it and people loved it. And they loved that I sort of would not draw the toaster head.
Mhm.
I couldn't not do it. I just couldn't not do it. There's just no way I could not do it, no matter what. And thanks Chris Ryall for doing Rom Dire Race. It allowed me to do full on Rom. And today, I mean, the last time somebody contacted me about my Rom stuff was this morning. So I've been given Romnibuses, and I've been given blank Rom covers, and comic books come in the mail, and Rom stuff comes in the mail from fans, and hey, can you remark this? And here's a gift. I just got somebody gave me a wooden Rom carved wooden thing, but at the last convention, Chris Ryle and I both were presented with these things. So I am now attached with Rom, and I'll probably be attached with Rom forever. And if Marvel does Rom, or anyone else does Rom, they probably should give me a call. It doesn't mean that other people can't do it, because they can,
Right.
but it would make sense,
Mhm.
you know. But that's the character. So in the future, let's see who else I'm attached to. It depends on who I want to draw and who I get to draw. But right now I'm creating new stuff.
Mhm.
I'll show you this real quick. Here's
Wow.
a proof of concept, because I worked in toys for many years. And this is from the Lost Landers property that my buddy Thomas and I have put together.
Awesome.
And so I said, hey man, I want to do a toy company.
Mhm.
But before you can do toys, you got to build this world. You got to see the figures in person. So this is one of our characters.
That's awesome.
And here's a character, Rockstar. He has multiple personality disorder. He's a professional wrestler. I worked on the WWF famous Bendham's line that lasted for like 10 series or 11
Mhm.
series or something. And I worked on the first 4 or 5, and then they just traced my stuff and then developed and kind of ruined it after I left. But what are you gonna do? Uh, Here's a character, Slosh.
Mhm.
He's a translucent guy. I just want to show you some of these real quick because I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Uh, Here's Ominous Sir, and this is our main villain. And Walter Simonson wrote the story
Oh,
uh, is of him and
mhm.
his origin. It's sort of an origin story. Um,
That,
and Yeah, man, thanks. But like I said, I'm a toy designer. I worked on the Tick series. I even did the Beatles at one point. I did the Three Stooges. I did a thing called Wind in the Willows. I did um Youngbloods toy line, the bendable toy line, and then watches and things like that. And I worked on all of the WWF, like big guys like Undertaker and Shawn Michaels and Goldust and Razor Ramon and Diesel and all those guys. So here's Toro, our cowboy dude,
Nice.
Toro. And let me just show you one or two more things. This is one of our minions. I'll explain that to you another time.
Okay.
Everyone loved this thing. It just so many people love the minion. Here's Chris Ryall's writing a story right now. He and I are working on together with a character named Fusion, and this is the villain right here.
Sweet.
Yeah, Arthur Adams loved this guy.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what was going on because this is based on a Dunkleel source.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and here's our character Colton.
Okay.
Anyway, there's a few more, but here, let me just show you this. Here's a Lost Landers poster. This is inked by Scott Hanna.
That's beautiful. That's really nice.
Yeah, we're doing the comics right now, so we're gonna bring it out in a month or two,
Mhm.
and Wheezy, Walt, myself, my son who wrote a story, and Sal Buscema and and Chris Ryall
Mhm.
will all be getting together in April at Big Lick. Sal won't be at the con,
Mhm.
but the rest of us will be at the con in Virginia, in Dulles, Virginia,
Mhm.
April 13th and 14th. So come see us. I have a company called Good Alien, and
Mhm.
I'll tell you all about that in the future. But we do comics and things like that, and create properties for film and television. And but it's the greatest people in the world. And the company is not. The company is more of a like like I'm not an agent or anything.
Mhm.
We all do it as working together to create something for the betterment of all artists and creators in the industry.
Okay.
So like I would say, hey, you're a good alien. I'm a good alien. It's called Good Alien.
Mhm.
And what it means is to be a good person.
Gotcha.
And we are good aliens. And we pay it forward to other people who are good aliens.
Mhm.
And everything we do will culminate in doing good for our industry and the people who are there now, who were there,
Mhm.
who are up and coming. Yeah.
Awesome. And I mean, you've done so much in your career, and I want to ask because you've done, like you talked about, toys, comics, advertising, movie posters.
Yeah, you can go to At Home and find the big Marvel poster. And my brother and I did the Chitari on there. There's books all over the stores that have we did the Avengers assemble villains.
Right.
So you can find it on clothes everywhere. If you see Loki like this on a shirt or like this with the Chitari or something, that's my brother and I.
Wow.
You can go to Five Below and get these, and there's trading cards and the artwork from us. It's been on Hot Wheels cars. It's everywhere in the world. I've done Star Wars, this, that, everything. But go ahead.
I'd say, could you have seen a career focusing on one, or did you need to do all of them to become the complete artist that you are?
Okay. My daughter would laugh about this one. I am extreme ADHD. I right now, while we're talking, while you're asking me questions, I have robots, monsters, and everything else in my head, storylines going in my head while I'm talking to you about other stuff. And my brain doesn't shut down. It's always running and creating. I have a list of movies, television shows, plots, synopsis, constantly being new things being written, inventions, all on my phone that I create. I just talked to somebody today about a new app that I was creating that I had created actually 15 years ago, but it's going to help the industry artists. And uh, I can't stop, dude. I just it just sitting here is making me want to jump off out of and I'm 54 and I want to go get into the ring and put gloves on.
Mhm.
That's why I did boxing. I thought I would do it for a little while and practice it. I didn't know I was going to do it for almost 15 years. And, I became the guy who trains everyone. I mean, people who are on, giant 320-pound football players to 18-year-old guys who are going to become pros in 2 years and fast and never get tired. But it was still it I'm still out of my mind,
Mhm.
and I can't read well as a result, because I'll read 5 words in a second, but I have to go back to the one of the other words because I skipped. I can't remember it because I'm already off to the next part of the sentence. And then same thing with letters, and same thing when I look at things, they don't make sense sometimes at first. And I have to figure out what the hell I'm looking at, or what I'm reading, or what's happening, because I'm already adrift and already past that. It's not that I didn't read it and know it. I just can't remember that I read it because I'm already on something else, and it clutters and gets all mixed up. And so I have dyslexia as a result.
Mhm.
It's not just from the ADHD, because it can cause this side effect that mimics dyslexia. But I am slightly dyslexic, and I have things like that. But I get past it because I stop myself, and I shut down for a moment, and I read it in a normal speed or something, or I listen to it instead,
Mhm.
and like 4 times. And then I go, oh, that's what I read.
Makes sense.
But that's why I do so much. I'll never not do so many things. I've been working with some people in Hollywood on television and films stuff for the last almost 4 years, and we have all kinds of stuff that should be coming out. There was a writer's strike. There was COVID hit, and then there was a writer's strike, and uh, I had over the last 6 years, almost seven, my wife was quite ill with
Oh.
some major illnesses
Mhm.
that got in the way
Mhm.
of things, made it very difficult. I still put out a bunch of stuff, but a bunch of stuff with a bunch of stuff with John and Sandy Carpenter, with Louise Simonson, with Walter Simonson, with Scott Hanna, with all these people, and a 200-page novel called Core that I had done. It was very, very difficult to be the editor, to be the artist, to be a co-creator or creator, to get everyone together, all that jazz, man. While my wife was in the hospital dying, and I was right next to her in a chair doing concept designs while a doctor's coming in, and I have to stay up because I want to make sure she's getting the care she should get, you know. Uh it was very difficult. So that's why I don't like to hear people say, well, I'm gonna do something someday. I'm like, come on, man. Come on, man. Come on. Do it. You got to do it for yourself. You got to do it for everyone else who came before you, who will come after you, and for other people that you will inspire. You need to do these things. So I have toys out. I have comics out. My artwork's been in TV shows and film. I co-created a character named Scorch that was on TV and
Right.
Marvel show. Stuff like that.
Well, I mean, you definitely have to come back because your career absolutely blows my mind. But you were just talking about the new projects you have coming up. Where can fans follow you? Where can fans find out what's going on and be a part of it?
Uh, Go to my Instagram.
Okay.
Guy Dorian Sr. Art is my Instagram. If you try, I think I blocked most. You can send me a friend request on
Mhm.
Facebook, but I have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of friend requests that I haven't been able to look through because I just gave up. Because I was like, oh, what am I supposed to do at this point? So you're better off with that. Go to lostlanders.com. The website just started getting going.
Okay.
It's up, but we're going to be adding a bunch of stuff and we're getting all the things ready and everything. There'll be a campaign. But go to Instagram, Guy Dorian Senior Art, and you can follow me. You could send me a message, uh, um, um, I try to talk to everyone I can in some way. That doesn't mean, sometimes I'll get messages all day long, and I can't sit there answering every message. That's not, I have a job. I
Right.
have, I'm creating things.
Mhm.
Um, but I will try, do try to get to everyone.
Mhm.
Uh, just want to shout out to Mark Spears, working over with Todd McFarlane on Spawn and such like that. And he has his own monster stuff that's out that he created, and he had Kickstarter, very successful Kickstarters. I think they were Kickstarters or Indiegogos, crowdfunders. He just did something. I want to plug Lost Landers. Like I said, Lost Landers. Lost Landers is on Instagram as well, and is lostlanders.com. From my company with Thomas, Bamco Toys Inc. Um, uh, watch out for that because there'll be a campaign, and it's got Wheezy and Walt and all these great, incredible people. I mean, the best of the best. Um, and I'm drawing. And then here's a thing that Larry created. Almost always, I am the impetus for most of the things that I work on over the last 10, 12, 15 years. But as far as comics are concerned, but Larry Hama is a pal of mine that if anyone hears his name, you have to know that he's one of the most prolific guys who's ever been involved in storytelling in general,
Mhm.
let alone comics. I just happen to be a lucky enough guy that he and I are pals, and he came up with something. This one wasn't mine. It's called Mounties versus Werewolves, and it's, oh yeah, well, we've seen aliens versus werewolves, zombies versus werewolves versus werewolves, whatever versus werewolves. But everyone's not Larry freaking Hama. Okay, so here's the thing: when Larry Hama takes on something that says, Mounties versus werewolves, it's called Mounties versus werewolves. You can bet it's not just going to be a verse werewolves thing. Larry's one of the greatest storytellers ever. And here's how Larry and I work. We've come to work. I'm a pretty accomplished illustrator. Um, and Larry knows that that's my deal. Larry will sit there and come up with his stories, but he'll thumb them out. He'll thumbnail them all out. And what is he going to do with them? He just sends them to me. I take the thumbnails and I go, hey, there's things I want to do. But does anyone really need to change anything that Larry does? If Larry says this is the way the panel should flow, then Larry's not wrong. Don't change it. So I've learned, let's stick with Larry. He worked on a book called Core. If you haven't seen it, go to pkmm.com. I think it's still up there. COVID, bashed the shit out of that. But it was called Core, Controlled Organic Robotics, some of the greatest comic book artists ever. You'll see Herb Trimpe's last work in that book that you cannot get anywhere else. It's a nearly 200-page graphic novel. It's from PKMM. Go to shop.pkmm.com, PKMM, or find Matthew Pallotta, PKMM, on Facebook, and you could ask him, tell him you want to order the book. And Larry, my son, wrote the plot. He came up with a lot of the creations and stories, but then Larry took over from the end of issue 3 through the rest, which became a graphic novel of like 7 issues altogether, almost eight full issues and we just wound up putting out a graphic novel. It's got posters in there, double page splashes from Michael Golden, and myself, and I think Mike Royer, and me and Joe Sinnott, and Sal Buscema has a double page splash in there. Me and Paul Galassi, uh, um, Neil Adams, and a few other guys. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. There's guest inkers in the book. Mike Royer guest inked on some of that stuff, and Frank Fosco, and Bob Wyacek worked on that. And Sal was my main anchor for most of it. And there were other guys who assisted on translating some of my layouts into breakdowns to speed up the process, like Kane White for a little bit,
Mhm.
and Steve Scott, and a few other people. Um, so I mean, it was really like this incredible book. But my son really shone on that, and Guy Dorian Jr. He's making his first appearance at the Dulles Con, uh,
Oh,
at the Good Alien booth. But anyway, so those are things to look out for. There will be a Mounties vs. Werewolves is on Instagram. We haven't really done much with it yet, but we're setting up the campaign's almost ready to go live. So you want to look out for that. Okay. So go follow me, go follow Guy Dorian Senior Art, go follow Mounties vs. Werewolves, and go follow Lost Landers on Instagram, and then you'll be able to find the connections with everything. By the way, last plug, I know this is
no, no,
taking
no, no. It's amazing stuff.
my wife, when she was ill, started doing art. I don't know how she does it. She from out of nowhere, she didn't want to do art because I'm, you know, a known professional, works on I've worked with 20th Century Fox, everybody, Marvel, everybody. So, so she, she was, I'm not going to do any art. She started doing art when she was sick, and then we found out that she had this skill at sculpting monsters for masks. She has a store on Etsy called, you go to freakside.com and it'll bring you to her Etsy shop, where she sells masks that she makes. They're incredible. It's just incredible. And then she started painting, and now she's been doing paintings. She hasn't put them out yet, but man, I'm telling you, they're going to be in the Disney shop soon enough. Without a doubt, without a doubt. I won't be the only one who has work in Disney World. Because you could go to the superhero, if you go to the superhero store in Disney World, my work is on the walls.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
pretty. A very talented family.
We discover our things. My daughter's a musician, coming from the school, the prestigious Berklee School of Music, and she had we got her a Juilliard alum to private instruct her since she was 7. She turns 26 this month, 26,
Mhm.
26. And But when one day she came to us with a drawing, we're like, what the heck is that? Where did that come from? I didn't teach her. Oh my gosh. She does pastels. It's like amazing. And I'm like, she's like, I don't want to be an artist though, Dad. And I'm like, don't, don't go compose music for film. Do that. Uh, but it's like New York City over here. My wife's painting, she's sculpting, I'm sculpting, my son's drawing. Let me show you a sculpture.
Good.
These are going to be part of the campaign.
Wow.
Are hand sculpted,
Wow.
and there's going to be tiers where you can get this.
That's awesome.
So
Wow.
yeah, I sculpted this one night so that we could see what it would look like in one of the werewolves,
Mhm.
and then we'll make molds of it and cast them, and they'll be numbered, and they'll be limited editions, and part of the campaign. So there's one of our werewolves, and here, I haven't done the base yet, is our Mountie.
That's awesome.
Here's our Mountie.
That's really, I was speaking to someone before, and you guys are doing it too. It's brilliant that you guys are coming up with these things to go with the books to get, people. I mean, the star power alone and the names are going to draw folks in, but to have these as well, it's really a wonderful idea to tie in with these books.
Well, there's trading cards. There's going to be all kinds of other things like bookmarks and things like that that look like werewolves and art and everything. And um, Kevin Conrad will be doing some of the inking. Uh, 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 Mostly Sal. Probably Scott Hanna will come in on some stuff. I might do some inking. I'm a very, very good inker. Don't I prefer to draw, but I'm a very good inker. So, but mostly probably be Sal.
Mhm.
on that. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you're right. Star Power, me and Larry and Sal Buscema and some of those other guys and probably have a cover by Bill Sienkiewicz and a few other well-known peeps um uh uh that and somebody else who's insanely popular will be doing artwork for Lost Landers. We talked about it. It's not set in stone, but we did talk about it. And there was yeah, I do it. But it's a guy who's like, anything he does is gold.
Yeah.
So, and he's super big in the industry. So, I mean, that alone, you're right. But I mean, the stuff we feel like it's got to have extra stuff. And I'm a toy designer. I'm a sculptor. I do all that stuff. So I was like, man, I'm just going to sit down and sculpt this thing and people can grab it. I mean, who wouldn't want that? Uh, um, uh, uh, so I'm into making these things happen. Thomas and I, after we do the campaigns for the comics and everything like that, we're going to raise money. It costs a lot of money to produce toys, but all of these are going to be articulated action figures.
That's
And
awesome.
it's going to be so cool. This guy's going to glow in the dark, and there's something else you're going to be able to get of him. There's a certain kind of toy we're going to make of him. I can't say what it is because it's our thing, but oh my gosh, it's going to be so cool. And we design those so that they're not only one of the main things, the thing about my work that I've tried to make sure that I do, and it's probably because of the kind of work that I do, it's been very ingestible for people. And whether they're a 12-year-old kid or they're an adult collector, they all say the same thing. So I know, I've tried to make sure I build a track that way by doing toys and comics so that I create an ingestible style that's open to anyone. And I think that's where a lot of the success comes with what I do and why so many big name guys work with me, because if I say I'm going to do it, it gets done. If I say I'm going to create toys, I'm going to get somehow, some way, I'll meet the right person. Thomas was the guy, and we collaborated on all of it and made it all happen. And we're doing it now. And then all this stuff. And I want to go work with Louise Simonson. Hey, Sandy Carpenter, Wheezy and I want to work together. Let us do something. Sure, guy. Boom, boom, boom. But it's through efforts of going over to the booth, talking to them, and all those culmination. It's not one thing. You must. I just want to give everyone advice. It doesn't matter if you're a kid, a young kid, or you're an adult. If you're 50, if you want to do something, if you want it to happen, dream it, and then you set a path. You got a 2-year plan, you got a 5-year plan, you got a 10-year plan. Don't falter from the plan. It doesn't mean that things won't not happen, but you'll get to that if you keep going and it'll happen for you. You can do it. Just keep going. Whatever means necessary. If you want to be the artist, but you're not good enough and you need to pay someone to do it, stop drinking coffees every day. Find yourself an artist, cut off coffee every day at Starbucks for a year. You're going to have money to pay someone to draw a comic that you will never be able to draw. And you're going to have your thing out there. And what's his name from Skybound made sure his comics were out there. I'm sorry, I said what's his name. I always get them mixed up. The owner of Skybound,
Uh,
uh, Kirkman.
oh,
I
yeah,
always
yeah,
get them all mixed up. Is it Kirkman? Is it Kirkham? Because there's an artist and uh, the dude did what he wanted to do. He's great. I mean, he
yeah.
did it. You got to do it. Do it. Do what you want to do.
Mhm.
Find the means. Suffer through it if you have to. Give up stuff to get it. Don't think you're special. You're not special. You have to make something that is special. Then people will say you're special. So don't ever and always be humble about it. Just be humble. I've mentioned how many times that, oh man, I can't touch Walter, can't touch the greatest art. I didn't say I was. Bill, you got it. You got to I've done a lot of great things, and I'm a pretty damn competent artist at this point, but I put in the freaking effort, like unbelievable effort. I've had 2 days in a row sitting at the artboard drawing a Star Wars coloring book while I'm working on something at Marvel, while I'm designing a toy for toys. And I did sat at the board for 2 days straight. The only time I got up was to go to the bathroom. I ate my meals there. I slept there. My hand would still move while I was falling asleep and drawing.
Wow.
These are the types of efforts that it takes. It doesn't just happen because, oh, you know, make the effort. Sorry, it just needed to give some type of inspirational thing at the end to tell people so that they have the power to do it for themselves. Sometimes they need to hear it, you really need to hear it that you gotta just do it, make it happen.
Well, as a fan and admirer of you and your work, I just want to say thank you for all the hard work you put in because it shows in everything that you do. And, just by talking to you as well, you love what you do and then you sacrifice a lot to make it wonderful for us. So thank you so much. And like I said before, we'd love to have you back on. That we just the tip of the
Talk
iceberg
so much.
today. No, no, no. I mean, you've done so much. It's just like we scraped the surface, but there's so much more to it, and
Oh
and
yeah, I
it's
had
absolutely
tons of work.
fascinating.
Yeah, but I appreciate it, and again, like I said, I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. One thing I always say is, like, and I'm going to bring up a guy because I got to talk to him at his studio, and it was for between 35 minutes and 45 minutes. I can't remember how long it was at this point because I was just looking at his face.
Mhm.
But I remember Steve Ditko had me up at his studio
Oh wow!
and we were chatting. It was Jack Kirby's birthday that day, and then when I walked out of his building, I wound up bumping into Evander Holyfield. What a day! Because I was on a podcast in New York at the largest. It was Mile High Comics or Midtown Comics. I can't remember, and it was me, Jillian Kirby, and Neil Kirby being interviewed for Jack Kirby's birthday
Mhm.
because I had started several Jack Kirby pages, and one of them I started with Eric Larson, called Jack Kirby with an exclamation point. That I started that with him, and I actually said, "Hey, let's start a Jack Kirby page."
Mhm.
And he goes, "Yeah, okay." But anyway, that culminated to that, and then I wound up stopping by Ditko's studio. And the thing about Ditko was every time he said fans, man, it was like the F bomb was coming out. I'm telling you, he wasn't, I don't think he was mad at people. I think he was mad at the industry. But fans, every time he said fans, he was like, fans. And he was angry about how those people were the ones to tell that. I think he felt that what he said gave me was that he felt like they took away, they became the editors, they became the publishers, they became this and took away the craftsmanship that he was because he wrote his own stuff really most of the time. It wasn't really other people doing it. He would just hand it in and then it might get scripted differently, but really it was him doing most of that. But one thing I said to him, and I'm trying to live by it, is that I said to him, I said, you don't, and I was really risking a lot here because he kind of got mad at me, but then he said, have a good day either way. But I said, we're all fans of yours. You don't think that because there were talks around the offices of somebody saying that I was going to embellish him on
Mhm.
a book. But then Marvel filed Chapter 11 and a lot of books got canceled. So those things never massaged. But he remembered me from those days. But but I said to him, we love you, Steve. We're all fans of yours because you inspired us. You did stuff that gives us joy in our worst times when we're having arguments or we're sad or there's drug dealers there because I had drug dealers outside my window and everything and
Mhm.
gangs and stuff. I said, we all escaped from because of you. That's inspirational. You're a fan too, Guy. And I said, yeah, Steve, I'm a fan. So it is okay to be a fan. I am, there's three parts of the industry, the way I see it: the money guys and publishers and stuff, the creators, and then the fans. They're all one thing. When I see fans at the con, I don't go, I'm talking to this famous guy right now. If I'm talking to someone who's famous, who's at the con, I don't, it's a fan comes up, I go, how are you? I say the same exact thing to that person. How was your day?
Right.
What do you do for a living? What's your favorite thing, man? Let's talk about that. Oh, I like that too, man. That's cool. And because those fans, we're we're all fans of each other. I'm fans of guys who do podcasts. I love listening to them. I go on YouTube all day and listen and watch guys like you to oh my gosh, he's got my favorite inker. He's got this artist does on. I didn't do that. You did. He
Right.
did. You know what I'm saying? So I just a lesson to everybody out there. Be cool with everybody. And artists, treat them nice, man. Today, artists make the same amount of money they did 30 years ago. How many people that I know, 30, who are the age they are now, who might be watching this, who didn't get a raise in 30 years, who doesn't get health care, who doesn't get vacation pay, who doesn't get sick pay, who doesn't get a bonus? How many? Hmm? Huh? They work at Starbucks, you
Right.
get 20 an hour, 25 or something as a manager, you get all your health care paid and everything like that. Artists today still don't get that.
That's
So be kind to artists when you meet them. Every single one of them has done something that has sacrificed where they to be able to do this for them and for you. And they need to give to you for being fans, and you need to give to them for continuing to do what they do despite.
sense to me. Well, sir, again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak this evening. Love to continue this conversation and can't wait to see all these projects that you're talking about come to fruition.
Thanks, man. There's others too, but I can't talk about them because they're like non-disclosure Hollywood shit. But
Gotcha.
uh, by the end of the year or by within a year, I should probably be able to talk about the TV show and some other stuff. But you have me back on, we need to talk about some of the stuff on your wall here, buddy, because there's some cool stuff on that wall. The Make Mine Marvel over there, that poster over there is just killing me right now that I don't have that.
That's a
Uh,
new poster. That's not old. That came out 2018. I got it on Amazon.
all right, all right, I'm gonna look for it then. I didn't know that. I talked to Joe Staten. We were at the con. I said, "What do you read?"
Mhm.
I can't read comics. I'm drawing all day. I said, so do I. And you asked Sal Buscema, what have you read lately? Nothing. We're working on stuff. We don't have time, but we do like to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So again, thanks again, man. I
Oh,
appreciate
not a
it.
problem. Is there a date that would work best for you for this to come out so it coincides with the campaign kickoff?
Uh, why don't you hit me up? Why don't you hit me up for 3 to 4 weeks from now, and we could discuss that.
All right.
Just message me because you could pencil me in for like 4 weeks from now. I believe there's a camp. The Mounties vs. Werewolves will probably be up in about 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
So,
So if we
you know,
post this video maybe next week, will that help with the campaign?
yeah, maybe wait a week and a half
Okay.
to 2 weeks, and then that would definitely help with the campaign.
Okay.
You know, Mounties vs. Werewolves, and then upcoming within I think in April is the Lost Landers
Okay. All right. So I'll
campaign.
put it for 2 weeks.
Yeah, just
Sound?
hit me up anytime, man. Are we friends on Facebook?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, all right. I don't know. I'm on there, and I guess I can't keep up, man. I can't keep up. So like I go on now. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy anniversary, happy and then it's like by the time I'm done with that, that's a half hour. And I'm like, okay, I have less friends than almost every one of my friends on purpose, and I still can't catch up with anyone. And what comes in my news feed? It's not any of my friends.
No.
It's just the happy birthdays, and then it's groups. Oh, my Kirby group, my this group, my that group, my Michael Golden group, my this, because I own the larger Michael
Right.
Golden and all that stuff. And I'm like, how can by the time I do anything, it's like I gotta post something. Oh shit. Okay, Ming Chen and Chris Ryall were hanging out. Let me post this one. Let me post me and Walter or
Mhm.
something. And then by that time, an hour went by. I'm like, how do I have an hour to spare? I gotta get this Manny's vs. Werewolves thing done. So I try to tell people I'm not special. Everyone's time is important and everyone is special. But the kind of work that I do, I don't get paid if I don't get a check in
Right.
the, you don't get a check. Oh, it's Friday. I have a check in my bank account. It doesn't work that way. It works by, did you finish this many pages? Now you'll get paid. Did you finish that? Now you'll get paid.
Exactly.
So, you
Yeah,
know
you
what I'm saying?
hustle.
It's a different world, man.
Yeah,
And I almost went corporate to go work with other companies.
yeah.
They'll pay me way better. I know it's not that I don't make good money, but they'll pay me really, really good money,
Right,
especially at this point.
right.
But then I go, man, not working with Walter Simonson anymore, not having Sal Buscema ink me anymore.
Yeah.
What's how does somebody give that up?
No,
That's how many people are going to get that opportunity?
no.
And
You
at
made the
this
right
point,
choice.
yeah, at this point, Sal will ink Ron Friends, but pretty much just inks me.
Wow.
I am pretty much the sole continuation of Sal's career. And how,
That's rarefied air right there.
dude, 12 years we've been working together, man. And we're like, most people can't even call him and get him on the phone. Even big name people can't get him on the phone. And I call him up, hey, babe, how you doing? What are you doing? Yeah, just send it over my way. I don't care what it is. Just send it over. I'll link you any day. And so now anything I draw,
Right.
whether it's mine or somebody else's, if I send it to him, he yanks it.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Hard
Anyway,
work pays off.
man, it was hard. We were
Yeah,
poor kids, man. Drug
yeah,
dealers, gangs, all that jazz. I grew up in Elizabeth, and it was near Newark and
mhm.
I don't know if you know those areas or
Yeah,
not, the East Coast. I mean, but it was black neighborhoods where, what are you doing, white boy? Wow, wow.
yeah.
And so we had bajillion fist fights and all that stuff. And, you know, uh, uh, it was, I'm not complaining, but
Mhm.
it made me what I am today. I could fight better than I could draw today as a result.
Right.
My name is on a monument at the Shaolin Temple in Dangfang, China, and the oldest Shaolin monastery in the world.
Yeah.
I have photos of me standing there with Grandmaster. And my Grandmaster was a guy that brought Bruce Lee to learn Kung Fu from Ip Man. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't do things halfway. Um, but I wouldn't have done all those things if I didn't have this insatiable need to have to continue to fight because all I remembered growing up was fighting.
Right.
So then you try to get it out of your system and
Just
you
can't do
can't.
it.
But we'll talk about that another time.
Sounds good to me.
Been all over the world, man. Uh, Doing it, fighting martial artists all over the world and all that jazz. It's pretty crazy because I look back and I go, what did I do? Was I crazy? You know, I'm friends with one of the guys who I toured with is Robert Downey Jr.'s master because Robert Downey Jr. is part of our lineage and his grandmaster is my grandmaster.
Oh well. Gee
Yeah,
whiz.
yeah. So like I got pictures sent to me when he became a Wing Chun master and everything. And it was only like 12 of us got photos of him
Mhm.
getting his sash and all that jazz. Yeah, it was crazy.
So, gee whiz. Like this is pretty much could be a movie.
I was in film. I was on the History Channel as a World War II paratrooper. I was on some soap operas and I did commercials and yeah, I did all that jazz. I studied acting in New York,
Mhm.
um, in Manhattan, and then I was on some TV shows and stuff. And I did All My Children for like 4 episodes. I did some things, bit parts, but
Mhm.
then I wound up, having to get my union ship. And then I went to this with my brother-in-law to some open call with thousands of people for a movie called A Beautiful Mind with Ron Howard and Russell Crowe. And I was just there as, just to be there to support my brother-in-law. What do you know? We wait for 4 hours in the blinding snow, freezing outside in this huge line. We get up to the door, and right as we're getting up to the door, they're like, "We can't take any more people. The entire auditorium is filled with people, and we can't take any more. It's going to take us all day to see." All these people behind me, hundreds of them, screaming, yelling, cursing at the lady. And I said to her, I said, "I'm sorry that you have to deal with those people." I said, "Is there any way that you might open it up again later
Mhm.
tonight or something?" And she said, "Possible, probably not, but possible." I said, "Oh, you know what? I realize I don't, I probably won't be able to do it. I have to work tonight." I said, "But thank you so much for at least giving us the opportunity." I turn around, she grabs me by the arm. She goes, "I want you to come with me." She takes me downstairs because we had to go upstairs and it was all the way around the building.
Yeah.
An auditorium filled with people, takes me down the stairs, around in front of every single person who was waiting online. She she tells the people to go get me coffee. "Do you want coffee? I'll get you coffee." She says, "Come here, let's do it." And I had done auditions. I said, "I didn't come here to
Mhm.
do this. Will I get a waiver?" Because at that time you couldn't just pay to be in the union. You had to earn waivers. So I needed one more waiver. She said, "I'll get it to work on there." I said, "Awesome, great, and I'll get paid 400 a day or whatever." So okay, so and it didn't mean I had the part, but it was just extra work. But she said, "Are you union?" Because you had to be union to work on a closed set with Russell Crowe
Okay.
and Ron Howard. And I said, "No." She goes, "Check mark, you're union now." And um, and I went and I worked on that movie. And if you watched A Beautiful Mind, the first time, have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
The first time Russell Crowe walks into the Pentagon, you see the outside of the Pentagon, then he walks in through this door.
Mhm.
Um, you'll see me, if you watch the screen, you'll see me typing in that scene.
That's awesome.
I'm the clerk in that scene. And then I actually had a part where he comes up with all these codes. It's
Mhm.
the first time he comes up and figures out these codes on the wall.
Mhm.
They actually shot me getting all the codes for him off the wall and bringing them over to him and all that jazz. But they wound up cutting that part out and only used it for a trailer. And then, but it was only a TV spot, so they didn't have it in the trailer.
Okay.
And then they put Ed Harrison in its spot, looking through a window. Um, but if you watch that, you'll see me in that scene.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I've been everywhere, bro. I've been everywhere. The History Channel, a World War II film called Combat Jump. I
Right.
actually wound up getting a part as one of the main guys. They wanted to give me the lead, but the problem was I didn't look like the lead, so I couldn't get it. So they gave it to this other guy who was like some kind of local weatherman or something like that.
Mhm.
And but who do you think they put in the newspaper? This guy. And and then the lead actor came over, incredibly angry with me.
Yeah.
"Look who they put in the newspaper. Apparently it was you. I don't even know why. You're not even the lead." And it turned out everyone loved me on the set. So like a bunch of guys who were playing war guys came
Mhm.
over and said, "This guy bothering you, Guy?" I said, "I don't think I need any help, but you're welcome." Yeah, I got all kinds of stories, man. There's, if you go to my page, I had recently posted some pictures of me with Chris Walken.
Okay.
So I've been to dinner with Chris Walken. I've been backstage with Chris Walken. My teacher was friends with Chris Walken
Mhm.
and things like that. I was invited to parties with Robert De Niro and Chris
Gee,
Walken. Yeah, man. You know what? I just always wound up that way. I wound up meeting Stevie Wonder's manager.
mhm.
Well, I was touring in Hong Kong with my martial arts school, and we were up at Ip Man's grave, and I'm walking down, and it turns out one of the guys there flew out there in his G4 to go to the grave with us and hang out. I was before we went to Bruce Lee's favorite restaurant, and I'm walking with this guy. He comes up. I'm a big fan. I'm like, "And you are?" He goes, "Oh, my name's Brian. You might know Stevie Wonder. I'm his man. I've been his manager for 30 years." I'm like, I mean, the shit just happens, aren't it? Just like I don't, but I think what it is the stars have aligned for me because I've gone through so much suffering through it, and I don't want to say that I should get anything more than anyone else. I don't, but I think when you pay your dues, when you bust your ass, and when you go through those things, the universe wants to give you something back.
Yeah. Well, you definitely earned it, my friend. And we're back. So, really cool interview. Guy is absolutely fascinating. Did you see the names he was working with? Larry Hama, Walt Simonson, Louise Simonson. That's like basically, hey, I'm going to work with Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, and Hank Aaron, and we're going to be in outfield together. Phenomenal, phenomenal stuff. I love to have Guy back on to talk more about his career. So much to unpack with this one. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. Let's get this channel blown up in 2024 and have a wonderful weekend.